Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I am joined by Ryan Malloy. He is the managing director of a company called Liquid Software Corporation, but he has a background in all things not software, actually. And so this entrepreneur has done a whole pile of things, and I'm so excited to hear his backstory and then get into how he pivoted into the software industry. So welcome to the show, Ryan. I appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I had to reschedule on you once, and I absolutely appreciate your flexibility. So happy to
Not
be here.
Not a problem at all. And so let's start off the top of the show here with a question I often ask our guests, and that is, if you could give any advice to an entrepreneur, what would be the three things that you think that entrepreneurs really need to know?
That is a tough one. I hope I can answer that aptly and not make a fool of myself as compared to your other guests. But I'd have to say, having good legal and accounting support and influence and advice is a really important one that I think a lot of entrepreneurs unfortunately learn a little too late.
Yeah.
Good contracts are massively important. I was introduced to a catchphrase many years ago that I've repeated countless times because I find it to be incredibly actionable advice. But good paper, good friends. So if your contracts are apt, then things roll out. Everyone knows where they stand ahead of time, and it seems like that avoids a lot of pitfalls if you're able to have that working for you before it's a problem. So that would definitely
That's a great one.
be the first one. Another I guess tip that I've seen a lot of guys get in trouble with over the years is just keeping your overhead low. Alberta can be an unpredictable place to do business at times, and having big bills can really affect how you operate the business and affect your ability to be upwardly mobile at times. So yeah, managing overheads definitely one that's on the top of my mind all the time. Yep. And I guess the last one I would say is something I've been lucky to avoid over the years, but just don't bite off more than you can chew. It is incredibly tough to settle down a customer after you've overpromised and underdelivered. You're often much better off delaying or saying no out of the gate and keep preserving that relationship and having that opportunity again potentially. So I guess that would off the cuff. That's as good as I can get to answer that one.
Yeah, no, I really like all three of them. I think those are really well thought out. And just digging into that last one a little bit, because I know this is a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the early days of their business startups, right? Because you're just trying to survive. You're trying to get whatever, sale you can get. You're eating what you're killing, literally. And so you got to get out there and kill. And so sometimes there is that tendency for the overpromise. How did you manage that? Is this something that you had really good advice going into your entrepreneurial journeys, or is this something that you had to learn the hard way?
Maybe a little bit of both. My previous background was in like the industrial construction landscape. That's a pretty unforgiving environment. A lot of times those projects, can be high dollar, and doing something wrong in a high dollar environment, has often some stakes that especially new businesses might have a tough time surviving, mistakes in that arena. So that was one, I think, because so many of our early years were kind of working with higher dollar projects that had us be reluctant to test the depth of the water with both feet, as they say. So that's one that it's like, as tough as it is to turn something down, if you don't think you're going to do a good job of it, if you do turn it down, you have a really good chance of preserving that relationship and getting another chance. Yeah. Especially if you're, depending on the nature of the business, that original landscape was, you're selling consumables and commodity items. So oftentimes those guys would need that stuff again. If you're kind of in a one and done selling environment, it's even harder to meter yourself, but maybe it's even more important.
Yeah, exactly. So now tell me a little bit about Liquid Software Corporation. What problems are you guys trying to solve over there?
Well, that's a great question. So overall, we just find, we're here to provide business owners with state of the art digital tools so they can extract more money from their business.
Mm,
The business landscapes in Alberta, especially, we have so many different marketplaces at play and all converging, and a lot of businesses need some flexibility. Guys are pivoting, taking on different products or different services and so on. And a lot of the legacy software platforms that people are using aren't very flexible. We work with a lot of companies where they've been using something for 10 years plus or even longer,
yeah,
and just the advancement in technology has been drastic in that period of time. Through COVID and so on, especially, people really saw the benefits of cloud-based applications. It's really, that whole period advanced the usership of cloud-based applications probably 10 years.
mm,
The Bill Gates made a lot of money off of RDP server licenses over the last few years, and it's tough. Like when guys are using servers and remote desktop applications, you're expecting a whole bunch of computers to all work very well all the time, and that's that might be a tall order. And so we really find that people want cloud-based applications, they want flexibility, they want user friendliness, and a lot of that old architecture stuff where you're pressing F9 to search this. That just people have outgrown it, and the workforce is getting younger and younger, and our clients want something that they can train new people with if need be.
yeah,
Also, hand things off, like that's something that in addition to the software that a business use, they often layer in years of internal practices and Excel sheets and just a lot of kind of non-integrated arm's length things that's what it takes to run the business and make sure all the I's are dotted. And that's tedious. It often leaves a lot to memory, and that's the
yeah,
kind of thing that if Johnny didn't take care of that extra sheet properly, that maybe things don't get billed out properly, and that's the kind of things that can keep business owners awake at night or their staff. As soon as things are left to memory, or as soon as they're not, it can be a real quality of life improvement. Knowing that things are centralized in such a way that if someone's sick or someone's away, that everything's all in one place, and that staff are doing things the same way every time. And
yeah,
that's something that repeatable functionality is something that unless you're in a structured environment and you have a software application that supports that and maybe requires it, that's something that in the absence of that, there's a lot of different strokes for different folks, and that's how people end up rooting through their coworker's desk when they're on vacation or sick for a day or a week. So our structure really supports that. It puts everything in one place. The overall framework of our application is based around ISO 9000 protocols, which for anyone that wants to get an ISO designation, we make that really, really easy.
mm,
And we found that those protocols work really well for a lot of other businesses. So something that we didn't really expect to get into early on is the aviation aerospace industry.
oh
And
wow,
that was one that, as we were introduced to some companies in that segment, the Transport Canada or D&D regulations, if people are working with military aircraft, those regulations are very steep and as unforgiving as we would all hope they are.
yeah,
And the stringent inspection guidelines and so on that are put on companies in that space, difficult to manage. And by having a framework based around those ISO protocols, it actually fit the mold incredibly well.
mm,
And having everything be done the same way every time, and the necessary information centralized so everyone can access it when they need to, is really kind of some foundational principles of ISO 9000. So kind of by using that as the building blocks, we found that that's kind of steering us into some tougher environments, and we really like that. we kind of thrive when someone's business environment is not super easy to navigate. We find that as a barrier of entry is creating a nice swim lane for us, and we're excited to expand into more marketplaces like that where they're
Yeah.
tougher to do business.
Well, and really exciting times because, like you said, this COVID, 2-3 years really accelerated the need for businesses to shift to the cloud as their workforce needed to shift to working from home or other types of environments. And so the need for this is not going to get less, that's for sure. Definitely the writing was on the wall that that was the direction that most businesses needed to go with their ERPs, and now they just kind of got forced into it. And so you guys were positioned in an ideal situation, I would think, for that. And so one of the things that I really liked about what you were telling me before we hit the record button was just how you've really built your platform to be really adaptable and to integrate with a tool such as QuickBooks Online, as a piece of software that you didn't have to go through all that development time to build out some of the feature set that comes with. And instead, you just integrate with it and then build around that as a little bit of a base, as well. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And I would think that that kind of approach is somewhat novel in the development world, because most developers I know, they all kind of want to just build their own thing, but you come at it not from that development background, and so you weren't a developer. You don't have those preconceived notions as to what it should be done. You're looking at it more from a business standpoint, going, well, what makes the most sense for our customers and also for our business that we're trying to grow. So I love that approach that you're doing.
We found that, and I've got a lot of background working with QuickBooks for many years, ran multiple businesses on it years ago and so on. And it's not difficult to outgrow QuickBooks, and a lot of companies outgrow QuickBooks and then still use it for 5 or 7 years,
Yeah.
and develop a bunch of non-integrated tips and tricks to kind of fill in those gaps. And so that we really saw that as an opportunity, especially as QuickBooks continue to develop their online platform. It is very different than the QuickBooks desktop that many people have come to know and love over the years. It's really a different program entirely. So what we find is that as people, either move to or look at moving towards QuickBooks Online, they kind of get stuck because into its own estimation, QuickBooks Online does about 40 to 60% of what their top tier product QuickBooks Enterprise does. And then, probably in the 60% of what their other desktop Premier and Pro products do. So that really does, as they scale back some of their functionality, that just inherently creates a swim lane for us to fill in that gap. And at the same time, what the stuff they did focus on is really good. So QuickBooks Online is an excellent tool for doing your bank reconciliations. They API into almost every different bank in North America, so your transactions just get pulled into the system automatically through integration. It's incredible at payroll and at some government remittance functions. So those being so good, for us to kind of build out a front end application that'll let customers handle their sales and inventory, quality assurance, and a few other important things. It's a really nice fit that we're able to kind of leverage. It's there. I think in North America, there's over 100,000 businesses, or maybe that's just in Canada, running QuickBooks Online. So the usership is off the charts. And, we know that there's a nice big subsect in there of people that have outgrown it and are kind of just bootstrapping it along, wishing there was a better way to do some of their functions. So.
Yeah. And I think that this is, again, just a testament to your approach, from, an outside guy looking into the software development world. And I know you have some experience. You had mentioned before that you guys had to kind of build your own system in a previous business that you had in the oil field services industry. And so that got your feet into this industry. And then obviously you're just excelling after that. So really cool stuff. Now, speaking of your entrepreneurial history, you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur. You've done a lot of different things. This is the latest of those, but you still have your hands in a few other ventures as well simultaneously. And I'm just curious for, uh, people out there who are struggling just managing one business and really trying to focus on the growth there. How do you manage to juggle so many different ventures simultaneously and in very different industries? They're not even industry adjacent. Some of it trucking versus software, right? So I'm curious how you'd respond to that.
That's a good question. It was funny. That was kind of the need for good tools to help manage unique businesses. Um, that's probably a good example of why we built Liquid out to be so flexible.
Hmm.
One way I do that is all my businesses run Liquid. And I find that, the cross entity reporting and some of the other features that, funneling work so it gets done the same way every time, that kind of lets me, leverage different management groups to be able to do more in a repeatable way. So that was something that I knew a long time ago that I was going to need some help, from a technology standpoint if I was going to continue to do that. And so that's definitely one tool we leverage. Overall, we really believe in strong management groups and for the most part in also including those management groups as shareholders. That's something that
Hmm.
we've done in a lot of different businesses, and that always tends to really pay back. You end up with a dedicated workforce. We've got always have had very low turnover, and that really helps as we've got dedicated people that are get more and more experienced every year, that could take a lot of the load off myself as a shareholder and a director, and so that's a recipe I'll definitely continue with as the career continues.
Yeah, I'd love to probe into that a little bit more in terms of the shareholder aspect of it, and really having those employees bought in. So, is that something that when you're setting up the business and installing that management group initially, that you're putting that offer on the table, or is it something that you might start the business and then you start to pull the people who are the performers within the business into the shareholder group? I'm guessing that it might be a little bit of both, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is the best approach there, or what has worked best for you anyway.
Definitely a little bit of both. Some of the older businesses in my portfolio, kind of, require the need to pivot and open up some shareholding opportunities for qualified people. I definitely, on any new businesses, I absolutely include an ESOP component in any cap table. I just find that that's definitely the language of the marketplace in Alberta, especially. People are, they've been told for a long time that you want to own a business and that's how you get ahead. And so a lot of people are, can be relatively fixated on that. And, I've seen guys take terrible deals because they felt as though that had this ownership component that they saw as really valuable. And, the oil patch, especially, I do have a kind of background in the energy sector, and there's so many horror stories of the guys that were supposed to have shares and then it evaporated on them, or bad
Mm-hmm.
things happened. So, we really, I find it pays back substantially to not only, look for opportunities to include people, but also educate them onto like what's a good deal or a bad deal. So something that I spent some time with, kind of in early 2020 as we were all locked down, was creating kind of a master unanimous shareholder agreement that I applied to every business I was a party to,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really nice to kind of like level the playing field and ensure. I'd been involved in different businesses over the years, and some of those agreements were better than others, and some had elements that were really good and really two-sided, and then you flip the page and it had some crazy stuff in there. So I thought that just the concept by and large of having a master agreement that I would be happy to sign as a major partner or a minor partner or an equal partner. So that's something that we put in place, and it's been really good. And by having that kind of as a baseline, that lets us plug people in that have been with a company for a while, and also kind of have a vehicle and a method for, if there's someone that's a rising star, to give them a path to some ownership.
Yeah. 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 And I imagine, like you said, I mean, it just really creates that commitment, but then also allows them to just feel like there's more to what they're doing, right? And you can extract a little bit better, ownership thinking, entrepreneurial thinking out of them as well. I think it really makes a big difference in just the way that the employee addresses things on a day to day basis, too, right?
Absolutely, especially some low hanging fruit there is just various cost control methods.
Yeah.
Uh, the idea is if you can have partners that think like owners, they spend money, they spend corporate dollars a lot differently.
Yeah.
When there's a direct correlation to their year end dividends,
Yeah.
so that's something that that every business can really benefit from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then also, as it gets down to the individual, there's some tax advantages to having an opportunity at dividends and things like that. So,
Yeah.
the idea that guys can potentially put a little more on their jeans and feel like a bigger part, to own a little bit less of something much bigger or something much more stable. That's I'll take that deal every time.
Yeah. Yeah. So now I'm curious because this is your latest venture, but like we've been talking, you've had quite a few before and still involved with many. What is easier this time around with this business versus some of the previous businesses or your earlier, I guess, ventures that you had started or had been involved with? What's gotten easier?
That's a great question. It's a lot easier dealing with banks nowadays. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something that it's just been a byproduct of some good fortune. So that's something that's been a substantial shift this time around versus you started my first company when I was 25,
Hmm.
and that was just having some gray hair and having been around a little while. That helps. Really had to kind of fight a lot of stigma early on in my career, just kind of being a lot younger than a lot of the contemporaries, and that original industry we broke into. Basically, I guess not unlike the software industry, I kind of like to be the little guy competing with billion-dollar corporations. I do find that those, although it's daunting to compete with the biggest companies, those are often the guys that leave the most on the table in terms of the things that their customers aren't getting.
Yeah.
So that's been that's something that we kind of seem to keep running into. But just kind of understanding some of the framework, and the idea of like having a path to ownership for new employees, including people out of the gate, things like that. Just different structure based elements and strategies really help. It's nice to kind of have a roadmap for that you can kind of just plug and play and roll into the next venture. So that's definitely helped. Um, yeah, I'd say that's the biggest one. Just having partners to rely on, and having kind of defined roles and responsibilities. Oftentimes, with a new business, it takes years for those things to kind of take shape, and there could be a lot of arguments and so on before you get there. So having a lot of that kind of experience under my belt is definitely helped me kind of position new ventures into something that can be successful early on, and with a little less pain.
I'm curious now with all of the success that you've had. I mean, you had a big exit in one of the oil field industry businesses that you had, and lots of different ventures under your belt. So, what does success look like to you now? How do you, I guess, define success for you, having already experienced a bunch of it already?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, yeah, like I probably wouldn't put a dollar sign to it, and to keep it just that simple.
Yeah.
Overall, I really appreciate this industry, and that was something that um, kind of in some of my past ventures, you are going after the same business relatively all the time, and you might have it might be a crowded marketplace, but you're in there competing for similar orders all the time, every time, and
Yeah.
some you win and some you don't. What I really like about this industry is that you work with clients long term, and it's
Mm.
not it's a collaborative environment, not a competitive environment. Once they've signed the deal and we've onboarded them, it's about how we do more for them and how we work together, and it's been really rewarding, especially once someone has that their business can reap the benefits of the things we've built. That is really satisfying.
Yeah, I bet.
So watching this company grow has been a joy. I really appreciate the people I work with and so on. So if we were able to build this thing out to be just a little bit bigger, I would definitely, that would meet the mark of success for me for sure.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. So if you could write your younger entrepreneurial self a letter, so maybe the 25-year-old that started the oilfield services business, or maybe it's a different point in time, what would be in that letter? What would you say to yourself?
That's a good question too. It's funny. I didn't go to university, so that was one that you'd see that as my career's grown and so on. An MBA might have been nice. It might have, even if it didn't open some doors, it would stop them from slamming shut in some cases potentially.
Yeah.
So, earlier on, I didn't much believe in, higher education or so on. I just felt that there were so many people that, had degrees they didn't use. And that was kind of a stigma that kind of had me follow a certain path. So, considering an MBA or an accounting designation, that's something that might have kind of added some rungs to the success ladder. Not putting so much pressure on yourself. Sometimes it's it's easy to think you're not doing enough and so on, and sometimes that can make it hard to relax. So finding that and I think the term balance is often overused, but just having the ability to shut off work and not feel guilty about doing that. And that's something that took a long time to be able to kind of hone that skill in. So that might have been one that the younger self could use. Read more. That's one that I really didn't start reading much until probably the last 5 years, and I really could have benefited from a lot of that knowledge earlier on. So that, I guess if I had to boil it down to one piece of advice, it probably would have been read more.
Yeah, interesting. So just on that topic, what books have you been reading that you really have liked over the last few years?
I Blue Ocean Strategy was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
An author and online personality I follow closely wrote a great book that came out last year, a year and a half ago, called Your Next 5 Moves. Author's name is Patrick Bet-David. That is an excellent book. I read that twice, actually. It was a relatively easy read, but a lot of the knowledge in there wasn't as obvious as maybe I would have liked. So I read a lot of it twice. So those were really good. Bureaucrats to Barbarians was a great one. That was one that that one's excellent. And that's a really quick read. It's just, the language is great. It's not that thick, but man, was that relevant. Like, the whole book was relevant. And that one really goes into, that businesses themselves kind of have stages that they go through, often led by different kind of personality types. And that those personality types often kind of will dictate the period that business is in. And different growth models will kind of go through different periods at different times, but they kind of all exist in the life cycle of a business. And it was really interesting. It kind of ties in the personalities to the phase the business is in, and it really rang true for me. I thought I've given that book away as a gift a handful of times since reading it for the first time, and it's probably top of my list to recommend.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I know the audience is probably appreciating, just hearing a few of these ones that you've gotten some insights from. Because, like I said, I mean, you've found a lot of success. You're doing a lot of really cool things there, and so we as other entrepreneurs want to learn from that, right? And so it all starts with the education process, whether that's listening and having conversations like this, or reading books, or getting exposed to different opportunities and different ideas in a different format. So thank you very much for sharing that as well as your entrepreneurial journey. I really appreciate it, Ryan.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
So if anybody wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Probably through LinkedIn or Twitter.
Okay.
Ryan Malloy at Twitter is my Twitter handle. Or our website, thinkliquid.ca.
Okay, perfect. Well, everybody, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to check out some of our archives, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find them all, as well as searching on your favorite podcasting platform, Amplify Your Business, and you should be able to find us there as well. So thank you very much again, Ryan. I really appreciate you sharing your insights. And for everybody out there today, I hope you have a prosperous day, and we'll catch you in the next episode.